I have heard some people talk, well, we're in the 100-year, 7-year drought.
Hi, everybody. I'm Marlin Bohling with you. Welcome back to the Comstock channel. Always a pleasure to talk with you and glad to have you with us once again. I want to introduce my very special guest, Johnathan Hancock, and he is with Hancock Farms LLC, and now he's based in South Dakota. And as you can tell, behind Johnathan, conveniently and strategically placed, we have a large piece of farm equipment. He appears to be in your stereotypical farm shed, and I would imagine that you probably have been in the field here lately. How are you coming on harvest at this point? Can you give me an update?
We are almost done. We are down to our last 365 acres of sunflowers. We've been, let's see, wheat, oat, millet, lentils, corn, sunflowers. Just kind of run the gambit on all of your standing crops that you can imagine. All told, between the acres of our own and the acres we've custom harvested, about 10,575 acres with 365 to go. Oh, Milo. I forgot Milo.
Let's hear it for Milo. A lot of people never get the respect it deserves. AKA grain sorghum, they call it, but we
Yep.
always called it Milo when I farmed in Kansas. So I have to ask you, you have a pretty diversified operation out there. What was your cropping year like? I mean, would you call it a success or not?
If it wasn't for the custom farming, I think I would have totally lost my shirt this year. We had an average of 6 inches of rain across all of our acres this year. Incredibly dry. It was a tough year. But fortunately, some of the neighbors, some of the people around caught a couple rains we didn't catch. So they had crops that we could run out and harvest. We typically shoot for a 100 bushel corn crop. In western South Dakota, 100 bushel is considered better than average. So that's what we go for. This year we did around 58. So it was a tough year. The oats did well. They didn't perform as well as we wanted, but the test weight was good. So we caught a break there. The Milo was a terrible yield. Millet was millet. It typically yields about where it does. Millet's a dry weather crop. It holds in there. The flowers have been tough. Some late season hail and a lot of insect pressure has been really hurting the test weights. So whether it's our own crop or other people's, sunflowers have been tough. A lot of people that we would normally harvest for have opted to take the insurance and let them stand. And I mean, when the yields are sub 600 pounds to the acre, doesn't really pay to pay the harvester. So, but no, it's been a tough year in western South Dakota. Between what little moisture we did get came in the frozen form in the Great White Combine, and what the lack of rain. Otherwise, it's been tough out here. It really has, and I mean, I'm not unique to this situation. I mean, it's pretty widespread across a lot of this region. So it's been dry. It's been tough.
For the benefit of our viewers and listeners out there, Johnathan, geographically, where are you in the state of South Dakota?
We're 40 miles off of the Nebraska border, and we are about 120 miles off of the Wyoming border. A little town called Long Valley, the only place in the 48 states more than 100 miles from a McDonald's.
Okay.
You can Google that fact, listeners. Go ahead, check it out. Fact check me. I challenge you. When that star pops up on your Google map, that's me.
That's you. Well, coming from the plains myself, I know that you have to reach for whatever you can get acclamation for out there. So you can't be too far from Mount Rushmore.
No, we're about 100 miles from Mount Rushmore. Yep, okay. Absolutely. That would probably be our most local tourist attraction. So, but yeah, Long Valley's population 7, so I live in the suburbs.
There you go. There you go. My hometown had 83 last check, so you know,
There you go.
20 miles from the nearest stoplight. So, all right. So the year was a bit of a challenge out there. Do you have livestock
Hmm.
or not?
Yes, we are cattle producers as well. Um, Cattle prices have been pretty good, and through some rotational grazing practices, our cattle actually pounded out quite well. Uh, there was some revenue protection programs that were available in the spring that really kind of put a firm base under it, so we were willing to go for a little extra and try to maximize the dry weather forage we had, and that seems to have panned out. So the livestock year, even though the pastures were dry and we may have had to finish out our season with a little feeding, seems to have gone fairly well, or at least initial pencil to the paper looks like we made some money and we're going to get to play again next year.
I always like to ask everybody as they came through this year, have you had to alter your plans for next year? Just because it was such a, for lack of a better term, a screwy year this year in 2024.
Well, actually, I have altered my plans drastically for next year, but that is more of a labor issue. Um, Due to circumstances, my labor force, the number of people working for me has dropped dramatically. And I'm not somebody that likes to hire because I need people. I'm somebody that likes to hire because I like to hire quality people. So, unfortunately, I have made some really dramatic changes in my operation. However, as far as crop rotations and things like that go, we are planning, like right now, we are hedging on the dry weather bet, largely because we're going into a fall with little to no moisture, which means we already know that our spring crops, our spring forage, our spring grazing is already going to be short. So, and this is not true of just my perspective, but this is most people in our area. Most people are planning to enter a dry spring, which will affect them all summer. Um, Most people out here plant corn because they want silage or feed corn for their own people or for their own cattle. Most people out here plant milo because they are looking for that forage or silage crop. That is a large part of what people choose to do out here, and you can already hear people talking about planning for a dry season in most of western South Dakota and northwestern Nebraska, just because the ground is dry now and we don't have any kind of wet forecast for the winter that will replenish that and rejuvenate that subsoil moisture to give us the cropping that we're used to.
You know, that seems to be true of just about everybody that I've spoken with in what I would call the high plains, like the western half of Nebraska, Kansas, South Dakota, going into the Texas Panhandle. I mean, it seems to be a common problem. And I thought maybe we were past our 4 years of drought, and now it seems like we're right back in it again.
I'm hoping that it's not that 100-year, 7-year drought that everybody talks about. That I have heard some people talk. Well, we're in the 100-year, 7-year drought. Every 100 years, there's a 7-year drought. That would only put us at year about 4. And honestly, I don't know that I or anybody else can handle another 3 years of this in the western South Dakota, western Nebraska, Wyoming, northeastern Colorado. Uh, it's going to be tough to get through the next 3 years.
I know we have talked numerous times about Elwin Taylor's prediction, that he used to like to advocate for an 89-year drought cycle, and according to his cycle, that would be coming due in 2025. That's kind of a scary thought.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember reading on this study, and didn't he say that there was a coinciding of this next 89-year cycle that will go with like a 200-year cycle, so it will like double down and produce an even longer cycle? I mean, not to be a pessimist. I mean, I'm not trying to be that guy, but I I'm a big fan of his writings, and I think his research is very good. And I hope he's wrong. How about that? How about I hope I everything I've read from him tells me he knows his stuff, and man, do I hope he's wrong, because it's going to be brutal.
Well, and just to put the cherry on top, I've mentioned several times on here, and people probably get tired of me mentioning it, but it is, we are also at the 11-year grand solar maximum too, which can have a lot of weather impact because we're at the maximum of sunspot activity right now. And
Oh
you can
man,
tell
you
we've
just
had a
know how
lot
to
of
double
solar
down on
storms.
fun. You know how to double down on fun, don't you?
Yeah, right. And it's an election year.
I
We have all sorts of stuff going on geopolitically. I mean, why not? Had two
You're
comets
right.
this year.
Have you seen the amount of aurora borealis lately? I mean,
Yeah,
I've seen more aurora borealis this year than I've seen in my entire life, and that would lay back to the solar flare activity
right,
that you're talking about. So
right. Yep. Yeah,
I've
even
got
in,
some really
well,
nice pictures.
I'm I'm located where I am. I'm north of Nashville, Tennessee, and it's not real clear to the naked eye sometimes, but we've gotten some pretty decent photographs of it on time exposure down here even, and we've even had cases down in Central America where they could see it. Well, Johnathan, it's great to catch up with you, and I'm glad you're coming down the downhill stretch here on harvest. Stay safe out there. Thanks for the update. And you know what? I really look forward to meeting you at the Farmers Masterclass coming up in Des Moines in February. And we look forward to talking with everybody else that will be there in attendance as well. It'll be a great sharing of ideas, and we really look forward to it. So thanks again. All the best to you. You guys have a great winter, and I'll see you in a few weeks.
Thank you, Marlin. It was very nice visiting with you today, and I look forward to meeting you in person at Social Hour.
Awesome. That's Johnathan talking with us, and he is with Hancock Farms. He is in South Dakota, and we'll see him in February. For producer Brianne Hendrickson, I'm Marlin Bohling, and we'll catch you next time here on the Comstock Channel. Futures trading involves risk. The risk of loss in trading futures and or options is substantial, and each investor and or trader must consider whether this is a suitable investment. Past performance is not indicative of future results.